The Bears may have beaten Oklahoma on Saturday, but with so many penalties and turnovers, did the better team actually win? And do the Bears have a shot at a Big 12 title? This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Baylor. I'm Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears, and that is a guy who needs a haircut. I, too, need a haircut, by the way. He's Cameron Stewart, also from Inside the Bears. It says that down there along with Twitter handles. Thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. Cam, did Baylor beat Oklahoma? Full stop. Answer?
Yes,
Nice.
they did. Yes.
Did Baylor's 3-point deficit, what's the opposite of a deficit?
Margin of victory.
Did Baylor's 3-point margin of victory tell the story of this game, or do you think the Bears beat the Sooners worse than those 3 points? Did the better team win on Saturday?
Yes, that's a better way to put it. Baylor is a better team, and they did not play a perfect game by any means, which is usually what you need to win in Norman.
True.
But there's a lot to work on. I would say it probably wasn't too indicative. Because I think Baylor should have won that game by 10 points or more, even with being really poor in some areas. But yes, the better team did win. 3 is probably a little bit flattering to Oklahoma, but not too flattering because of some of the deficiencies that Baylor had.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma put up 500 yards of offense. And
you're not going to win many games giving that up.
No, their rushing attack was serviceable enough. They had a game plan. That first drive, so well done by Jeff Lebby. The offense of Oklahoma was not totally handicapped, aside from Dillon Gabriel once every 3 passes deciding that he would be me on the intramural field. If you're wondering at home, everyone, my team's out of the playoffs now too, so I can kind of recap the season, relive it. If you're wondering what I looked like on the intramural football field, every third Dillon Gabriel pass, not the good ones, those 3 interceptions, maybe not all 3 his fault, not good.
Yeah, and I think some of his missed throws were even worse. In fact, his worst one is the one that doesn't get picked off, the one that he hits Christian Morgan on a beautiful sideline route. Yeah, hit him right in the hands, and he doesn't catch it. But there was a stretch, and it was either the second or the third quarter, and Baylor wasn't pulling away, and Gabriel just first down, second down, nowhere near his receivers, 2 or 3 times down. But where they were great also was third down, 10 for 15 on third down, Drake. If you're giving up 10 of 15 on third down, you're not going to win many games. You've said that about the total yards and third down, yet they won the game. Baylor did. Man, he's just not what he used to be and isn't the caliber of quarterback that Oklahoma is used to having, and one that they need with the defense that they have this year. You talk about that first drive, and I agree. Lebby did some good things. I mean, in fact, we mentioned it to each other, and I think I tweeted it, was they isolated Dillon Doyle on the outside twice. And that Dillon Doyle is a heck of a college football player. He's not great in coverage, and he's just not the fastest dude. And when you have him one-on-one on the outside with Eric Gray, Gray's winning that battle 11 times out of 10. Yeah. And Baylor made some adjustments on that, but it just felt like – it almost felt like Baylor was in a prevent defense for so much of the game because of how soft it was.
Many people are saying that Dillon Doyle is not Jalen Petrie.
That would be correct.
They're right. They are correct. The play where it's just Doyle and Eric Gray, open field toward the sideline.
I was like, oh, man.
And Eric Gray –
behind the line of scrimmage, and you're like, this is a first down. This is on 1st and 10, throwing it behind the line. I'm like, this is a 15-yard game.
And Gray just gives a little whoop, and then Dillon Doyle just falls out of the screen. Dillon Doyle, good football player. Probably not Jalen Petrie. We're probably not going to make that play. You saw it too. Look, here's the deal. As well as I think Baylor played in, especially the run game, the offensive line in the run game have been impeccable. Khalil Keith is chef's kiss. Like, who knew he was the catalyst to all of the offensive line being good? The Baylor football team had so many highlights, but there are still the glaring issues, which is a good thing to talk about after you beat Oklahoma on the road, by the way, of occasionally the team decides, hey, on this possession, we'd rather not tackle. The next one, we're going to do it. But this one, maybe not right now.
And that's the pause for concern for the last 3 games, Drake. I know we'll probably get into this, but Baylor controls its own destiny. They got 3 good teams coming up, all excellent offenses statistically. One's a little sporadic, but the other 2 are great. And their defense isn't going to give up 38 every time, like Oklahoma's will. And this has got to be a point of emphasis this week. And I do trust that the great defensive coaches on that staff will devise a better game plan going into this week. But if you try to tackle Deuce Vaughn like that,
Quentin Johnson,
my man,
Bijan Robinson,
they are going to gash you.
That list goes
gash you.
Yeah.
And it was bad. The tackling was as bad as it's been all season. And West Virginia was also pretty bad. And they've had some bad defensive performances, but tackling wise, that might have been the worst. So frustrating.
Yeah, the one they call Sqwirl. He is so and Richard Reese had the flu bug. Dave says in the postgame press conference. So specifically flu bug. I don't know. Like Aranda every now and then is just an 80-year-old man. You're just like, oh, Dave, flu bug. Yeah, he's battling the flu bug. He is. So Sqwirl Williams plugs and plays.
Yeah.
Does this mean is the offensive line just that good? Because I want to say like, okay, then any running back would succeed. Like I said in the offseason with this offensive line. But then seeing Sqwirl's speed in space was, especially live, that like the guy's been hurt his entire career. And you would never know. What he did Saturday was a Sqwirl Williams that we have never seen that complete for a full 4 quarters ever, period.
Yeah. So back to your original, could any of the backs done that given the carries on Saturday? Maybe. Okay. I'll just say that Oklahoma's rush defense is that bad. But I always rated Sqwirl pretty high. I think higher than you do. And I thought he would be, if he was fully healthy this year, he would be like a Treston Ebner, a really good third down back, especially the way you pound the ball with Richard Reese. But yeah, I mean, he's got that speed. He's got a little more power than I thought. Maybe that's the Oklahoma defense really trying hard to tackle him and not being very good at it. But yeah, once he gets in that second layer, man, his speed equals these guys, which Abram Smith didn't quite have. Richard Reese doesn't quite have. Doesn't mean he's not a good running back. Sqwirl Williams didn't look like he quite had it. Quaylon Jones definitely doesn't. Again, these guys are good backs, but Sqwirl is that much faster. He's got that receiver speed. And so once he gets into that second level, like you saw, he can run with these guys, whereas some of these other backs can't. And I mean, even with Reese being 100% healthy next week and beyond, this is so nice to have. Now, this might be the best look at the rushing offense, or as close as it would be to last year, having a Smith and an Ebner with a healthy Richard Reese, healthy Sqwirl Williams, which we haven't had a ton of this season, both of them healthy and ready to go at the same time.
Here are the notes that you will get only on Locked On Baylor, because I feel like being educational this week. We strive to be educational every now and then, and today I'm going to attempt to do so. Baylor 6-1 this season while leading at halftime. 17-3 under Aranda when leading at halftime. Not a bad mark. Not a bad mark at all. Baylor rushed for 5 touchdowns. Rushed for 5 touchdowns in the game. How many games this season have the Baylor Bears, who played 9 games, rushed for 5 touchdowns in a game?
2.
That was the 5th time.
You're kidding.
That was the 5th time Baylor has rushed for 5 touchdowns in a game.
That's impressive. I'm not gonna lie to you, Drake. I'm hearing this raw and unbridled. That is really impressive.
Yeah. I had no idea. I'm reading it right here. Max Calderon's the one that posted it. Max can't lie.
They probably did it like last week.
Oh, for 100%. And every week before that.
And the week before. Now that I think about it, but that's pretty good.
Yeah. The Chapin doesn't have a lot of touchdown passes. So they've been doing it on the ground quite a bit. Craig Williams, first ever 100-yard rushing game as well. He had 2 touchdowns this whole season coming into the game.
Almost double that, by the way.
Right. He also could have had 3 touchdowns, but very unselfishly decided to drop there at the 10-yard line.
And wisely.
Super smart. Super smart. John Mayers, who I want to get into before we get into Baylor's chances at a Big 12 championship, or even just the scenarios that exist. John Mayers,
Chaos.
218 career points, 6th in program history. Mind you, lost his starting job to a true freshman last season. Lost his starting job to a true freshman. Took the whole year off, not as much as a PAT. Was great on Saturday, helped win Baylor the game. Has made 113 PATs, good for 5th in Baylor history. 32 field goals, that's 6th. 80% of his field goals he's made. That's number 1 in program history. 99% of his PATs, which is 4th. And he's 4 for 4 from the 40 to 49 range this season.
That's pretty good, man. And when he comes back for his 4th COVID year next year and kicks the game-winning field goal to win the national championship, it'll be a great book about it.
He's only a freshman, though.
True.
Give as much time as you want. You get like COVID year, redshirt year, a couple other redshirt years, that kind of
grad transfer year, but stay at the school.
Speaking of, John Mayers, this maybe being his last year, Baylor at some point is going to have to find a new kicker. They're going to have to do that.
Maybe. I mean, they did have a kicker they trust who's on the roster still.
And to do so, they'll likely use LinkedIn.
But they'll probably do that.
They'll likely use LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Need a new hire. Right now, LinkedIn's hiring. They're not hiring as like an interface itself, but people are hiring using LinkedIn. Did you know that I applied for a job using LinkedIn?
I did know that. And that's a really smart thing to do. I've applied with my jobs using LinkedIn. The day job that I have right now, I got via LinkedIn. So.
I transparently just started a LinkedIn account, and actually really enjoyed putting things into LinkedIn. It's fun. Purple hashtag hiring frame too. We're currently hiring at Sports Illustrated-ish, kind of. So, let us know at LinkedIn. We're going to post it somewhere on there, and I'll send a link out soon. Simple tools, easy to find. Small businesses rate LinkedIn jobs numero uno in delivering high-quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs gets you the people you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply.
Just sent a connection invite to Drake C. Toll, play-by-play sports broadcaster.
Yes.
Free mutual connections already. Look at that.
That's me. Cam, the Baylor Bears, and really the entire Big 12, the parity of the league we talked about all year long is insane. And then I looked today, and like half the teams in the league are 2 or 3 lost teams in Big 12 play and are like 6-3 overall. Everybody just wants
all in it.
They're all in it. Right now, it is Baylor, TCU, Texas, Kansas State. TCU looks pretty squarely in. There are some wild, and I mean wild scenarios where TCU doesn't make it in. How wild? Actually, not that wild. They lose to Texas and Baylor, feasible. But they do have to lose to Iowa State.
Surprising, but feasible.
A lot less feasible losing to Iowa State. Still, though, that's like 2 losses that make sense and 1 that doesn't make sense, and TCU's out of the Big 12 title race. They could still make it in a scenario where they lose all 3 games. But, Cam, when I tell you Baylor controls its own destiny, that makes you feel good. Then I tell you Baylor has Kansas State, TCU, and Texas left on the docket, makes you feel a little less good.
Yeah.
So I want to give. Yeah, what do you got?
I was just gonna say. I mean, we talked about this in our 8 hours in the car this weekend, to and fro Norman. It's like I wouldn't. At this point, I'm just not surprised with anything that happens with this Baylor team. Like, it would be pretty good surprising if they win out and they're in that championship game.
Right.
But I would be like less stunned if they just lost this weekend.
Yeah.
Because I think Kansas State's a really good team still. So that second team, man, anyone's bet. Last year, it was really at this point of the season, because we would have just had that Baylor loss to TCU. It looked like it was going to be Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, but maybe Baylor, no one else. And now you legitimately have TCU probably in, like we said, and then 3 or 4 teams that can get there. Is crazy. And I think, hot take here, because the Pac-12 has like 4 teams in the top 15. I would rather have this in my conference. I would rather have this.
Yeah. I'm rooting for TCU.
It's not great for the RPI and the college football playoff stuff, but I would rather have this.
Absolutely. It's way more fun. And these teams are good. It's quality football too. My favorite scenario for the Big 12 championship is the scenario of insanity. This is the one where Baylor beats Kansas State, loses to TCU, and beats Texas. 8-4 Baylor is then in the Big 12 championship. Whoa, no, they're not. They have 3 conference losses. All right. So do Kansas State. So does Texas. And those 2 teams lost to Baylor in this scenario. They're goodbye. See you later. Now, I know you're wondering, where's Oklahoma State in this? They lose to Oklahoma and to literally anybody else they play at this point. They're just bad now. They got really hurt.
It's not a great situation.
Really badly. Baylor's in the Big 12 title. TCU wins out. They beat Texas. They beat Baylor. They beat Iowa State here. 12-0 TCU, 8-4 Baylor, Big 12 championship. The same Baylor team that was 3-3 at one point this season. The ship was sinking, and lo and behold, the Bears win in Arlington. Unbelievable. Avenge the loss at home. Your fighting Baylor Bears at 9-4, taking on the LSU Tigers in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. And the TCU Horned Frogs, don't call them Texas Christian. They don't like that anymore. Welcome to the Alamo Bowl against Washington State. Hypnotoad, San Antonio, let me hear you. And you get the TCU fans like, well, at least we get to go to the Riverwalk. Oh, those stupid Baylor fans have to smell Bourbon Street.
I think there would legitimately be like TCU might pull out of
they'd fire Sonny Dykes.
The NCAA. Like
they'd fire Sonny
right
Dykes
away if they don't get an at-large bid to one of those Fiesta, Cotton, whatever it's going to be.
Max Duggan is benched.
That would be
they fire Sonny Dykes. Yeah, they're going to go at 12-1. They would go to the Fiesta Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, or something.
Probably,
they would go to something.
Probably.
But
if they did go to the Alamo Bowl, they'd probably get a better team than Washington State.
Yeah, they get like Oregon.
Those four, they get like UCLA or something.
Oregon, UCLA, USC, Utah are all in that conversation. So yes, they get something better than that. Fine.
There's still a world, by the way. The absolute madness would have to ensue that Oklahoma would go to the Alamo Bowl.
Yeah.
Which is fine. They went there last year, but hear me out. Because they'd play the second place team or the third place team, depending on playoff, in the Pac-12, which could well be the USC Trojans.
Yeah.
And Lincoln Riley.
Would be amazing.
That is on the table.
Mm-hmm. You're right, because someone's going to go to
It's falling
Cheez-It.
off the table, but it is there.
Cheez-It's not bad. Someone's going to the Cheez-It, a decent team.
Someone's going to the Cheez-It. Could be us.
That's my favorite scenario there, is that Baylor beats undefeated TCU to keep them out of the playoff at the goal line. He didn't get in. The other scenario,
from a fan perspective, that would be the ultimate win. That would be so great.
Cryogenic Kansas State. They're not dead yet. Unfreeze them.
Oh.
Kansas State beats Baylor. In this scenario, Baylor loses this weekend and still goes to the Big 12 championship. Doesn't matter what happens. And again, in a scenario where Baylor beats Kansas State and beats Texas, does not matter what happens against TCU. Baylor's going to the Big 12 title. Does not matter, win or lose. Mm-hmm. In the cryogenic Kansas State scenario, Kansas State beats Baylor, West Virginia, and Kansas. They win out, right? They still need Texas to lose at some point. Texas beats TCU this weekend. Baylor beats TCU and Texas, so the Bears win out the rest of their way. Now, in this, Texas loses to Kansas. Not impossible. Kansas is playing well, and Texas is Texas. That game's in Lawrence.
That's in Lawrence, yep.
And TCU loses to Iowa State. In this scenario, due to head-to-heads, your fighting Baylor Bears at 8-4 are in the Big 12 championship game against the 9-3 Kansas State Wildcats. And is like the Big 12 is so weird that this is an actual real scenario. Those things could really happen.
There is, for Baylor fans, an even wilder scenario.
Yeah, hit me.
But I think you might need to dedicate a whole episode to that. This is the one on the drive back from Norman that I thought Drake was going to drive off the road.
Oh, yeah.
He loved this so much. Just like when we found out about the belt at BYU, coming back from BYU.
Yes.
It was that exciting. Do you want to do that, or do you want to do that another episode? That's a good tease.
It's a great time. It's a great time. We're gonna hear from Dave here in a bit, and the music, the teams. We were at Norman. We were in Norman. Decent college town, not a great decent college town, not a great atmosphere, not a great stadium, bad old stadium, bad urinals, you don't need a new stadium. It just needs an upgrade. It's a healthy upgrade. And we left that stadium. We figured out if the rapture were to come, the craziest finish in college football history, better than Alabama, LSU in that national championship in 11. This is better than the Cam Newton Auburn team or the LSU 2019 team. This is 8-6. Baylor beats Kansas State, loses to TCU, but beats
Can I just
Texas.
pause you for a second?
Yeah, please do.
Because I think people just listening to that went right past that. What would that record be?
That is 8 wins and 6 losses.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to think of how that could work in a 12-game college football schedule. So please do let me know.
That's like straight out of the MAC, by the way. Like this is something that would happen in the MAC 100%.
Yeah, good.
But the Big 12 is the MAC now. Baylor beats Kansas State, and I already told you that TCU game won't matter if Baylor beats Kansas State in Texas. Baylor beats Kansas State. Baylor loses to TCU at home, and they beat Texas. So Baylor's 8-4 at this point. They go to the Big 12 title game against 12-0 TCU. Well, those Horned Frogs are good, man. Sonny Dykes, Hypno-Toad.
Which is great.
TCU wins. TCU wins that game 13-0. Where do they go? Punch their ticket to the College Football Playoff. Congratulations, Max Duggan and Sonny Dykes. Baylor at 8-5, having recently lost the Big 12 championship. Best team in the Big 12 championship not in the playoff goes to New Orleans. They play the Tennessee Volunteers. And the 8-5 Baylor Bears lose by just a hair on their chinny chin because the Volunteers couldn't care less to be there. Final score 7-6.
It's like 57 all over again.
Baylor finishes with 8 wins, 6 losses, unranked, having gone to the Big 12 championship and been the first unranked team to play in the Sugar Bowl probably ever. Drink away.
It's crazy. It is crazy how realistic,
how close it is. How really oddly close it is.
So let's put this scenario out there because I peek behind the curtain. We're both Baylor fans. You know, the content is great for us when they lose anyway, but we don't want them to lose at the end of the day. So Baylor goes in at 8-5 in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
Are we even rooting for them? Or do we just need this 8-6? Sugar Bowl victories are fantastic. Last year was so fun. 8-6 is forever.
Yeah.
No Big 12 team touches that. 8-6, man. We're the only ones that have that. Print those T-shirts.
Hang a banner.
And 6.
Put it in the team's bio. Baylor football, home of the 8-6 2022. Tell your kids.
The only Sugar Bowl contestant ever to finish unranked.
8-6. You guys remember that Baylor team? Oh yeah, 8-6. That's what it's gonna be. No. The national championship. Oh, I thought you meant 8-6. Yeah, I did.
Let me tell you a little something about 8-6. Here, kids, gather around.
Qualiapo. It's my grandson's name, by the way. Names are getting crazier. Qualiapo. Sit on grandcad. I'm gonna be grandcad, by the way. Names are gonna get real crazy for grandparents too. Sit on grandcad's lap. Let me tell you about the 8-6 Baylor Bears. And he's gonna say "Bakdek," or whatever language they're speaking in by then. What, like 2090 at this point?
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell him about 8-6 Baylor. It's on the table. And like you said,
it's on the table, man.
It's oddly not, it's really doesn't, not a lot of crazy stuff has to happen, by the way.
It is feasible.
Not a lot of crazy stuff.
I mean, 2 of the last 3, which are tough games.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's easy because TCU is better than you, and so is Tennessee. Right. So, or LSU or Alabama.
Yeah. Anybody you get there. It's not going to
bring me 8-6. Come on.
I'm Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. That's Cameron Stewart. This coming up next is Dave Aranda. BetOnline.net, where the game starts. BetOnline.net's where I lost $18 this weekend after making $150 last week. But luckily we got comped pretty healthily to go to Norman, Oklahoma, didn't we? Cam bought a banana on the way home, and I checked my BetOnline bets for the end of the day, and that was the smoothest trip home that we've ever had at a road game.
Bought a banana from a 7-Eleven, and the rest is history.
The rest truly was history. Did stop for cheese fries in an Outback Steakhouse in Fort Worth, where I again checked my BetOnline app and watched the Astros sadly win the World Series. That's right, I said sadly. BetOnline.net's where the game starts. Go check it out. Mobile device, super easy to use, all that stuff. BetOnline.net, where the game starts. Dave Aranda, what did you think about all that Baylor winning and stuff?
Guys, it's good to see you. I think to get a win when you don't play your best, to get a win to win, you're almost fighting against yourself. And, I think there's multiple times in that game just on the sidelines, we're kind of crying out, remember West Virginia. It felt a lot like that. It felt a lot like that game. And to pull it out somehow and to grit it out all of it is, credit to the players for sure, and thankful for their effort and appreciative of their grit. And so, with that, right, when you get a win and you're not at your best, and there's a lot to improve on, I think it shows good for your team. And so we're looking forward to being home. I think the 2 weeks in the road is a whole thing. And so to be home and to be in front of a big crowd and play a really good K-State team that I have so much respect for, looking forward to that. Take any questions you guys got.
Dave, how cool was it to see a game like that from Sqwirl after all he's been?
Really cool. Yeah, I think, Sqwirl ran hard. I mean, the dude's like 160 pounds, and is pulling guys with him, right? And old linemen see that, and maybe they're tired and they want to, maybe go back to where the ball's going to be placed eventually, and they see him, running into dudes that are twice his size, and so that now inspires them to push a pile. And so all of that's just way cool. And so I think, prior to that last one, we're talking about, hey, this is no moss, and so we need a first down, and then that can close it out. And been in that before, where everyone says that in a timeout, and then it's not executed, And so for him to have the awareness of all of it, to do it, is just it speaks so highly of him. So thankful for it.
And what happened to Reese? What was his, Richard?
Yeah, we're kind of battling kind of a flu bug that's gone throughout the team, and so he's battling that right now.
Dave, on your last touchdown drive, it was like run, kind of ran it right down OU's throat. Just how satisfying of a drive was that? Old linemen love it, don't they?
Yeah. So asking about just that last drive, or that touchdown drive, and so, going into the game, not knowing, so previous OU defense early in the year, odd fronts, 4-down fronts, edge pressure, inside pressure, twists, everything. And these last two games, kind of 4-down fronts, some corner pressure, some linebacker plugs, interior stuff, and really that's kind of it. And so not knowing what we're going to get, and then getting into the game, and they brought corner pressure, they brought some mic plugs, and they brought the jack and the will from the boundary, a 5-man hit. And so having to make the adjustments for that, and the identification of all of it, and so that's one thing. But then the other thing was, I think, just the O-line knowing that, hey, we need this, right? We've got to do this to win this game, and that's way impressive to see. And so you can build off of that for sure.
Is it just your MO? Was there any hesitation on that 4th and short?
No.
On that touchdown drive?
No.
Dave, early in the season looked like a really good team that couldn't close out games. What clicked in the last 3 for you guys to finish out these wins?
That's a good question. And so, I think you just kind of keep coaching, and then guys, but then the relationship's got to be good enough to when you want something and you're not doing it and it's all wrong, and then there's a scoreboard and the losses pile up, and then the criticism comes, to kind of stay together so that you can still coach and get what you were trying to get the whole time in the first place. I think losing just complicates things so much, And so I thought everyone really did a good job with that, and staying aligned and not losing themselves in the midst of losing. And so that's allowed us to kind of get back to really who we are, And so I think there's a bunch of learning and growing for coaches, but then there's also a bunch of immaturity that's got to be shed for players. And I don't know if there's anything wrong with that. I think that's the truth. And so for all that to go through, a season is tough. You'd much rather go through that in the off season. But we're still kind of going through that now, to be honest.
That was Dave Aranda. This is Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. That's Cameron Stewart from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. We both need haircuts. Come back tomorrow, because today's Baylor basketball game day. We're going to talk about the Baylor Bears playing basketball, Keontae Jordan and all that jazz. All that's tomorrow on tomorrow's show. Probably some more stuff about Oklahoma too, because Baylor won in Norman for the first time, second time. First time since I
was in high school.
Yeah.
Which makes you like 4 years old.
I think I was 2. First time in a long time. My 12th birthday is coming up. This has been Come Back Tomorrow for Basketball. Drake Toll, Cameron Stewart, Locke. Thank you for making it your first listen every single day on Baylor.